Okay, so the other main point of grammar that we'll be looking at is correct tense. Now, correct tense is something that comes up frequently when I'm marking essays, and the reason is because of the fact that one of the things that's really hard to do, particularly, and this is obviously something that happens in creative writing as well, is thinking about the exact order when things happen and referring to something that, for instance, has happened, or your current interpretation of a text as something that's in past tense, sort of ruins the effect. Basically, because what you should be trying to argue is the way that you see things is something that's true now. And if you're talking about something that's a historical event, then again, you're referring to it in the correct tense as well. Now, this might seem like a very minor point, but it's something that does come up, and it's something that does help to not only make sure that you've got very strong meaning in your writing, but it helps to fix up one of those small little errors. Let's have a look at an example first of all, and this is something that's in present tense. So Gerard is portrayed as a rebellious teenager whose distrust of authority often causes conflict between his family and results in violent outbursts. Now this is in present tense. Now why is it in present tense? Because it's an unchanging representation of the story. So even though I read the story in the past, my interpretation of it is something that is unchanging. And the reason why the representation of the story, or my interpretation of the story, is unchanging is because the text itself is unchanging. Now its meaning may change, but the text itself and the actual physical book and words of it is something that doesn't change. Even though my interpretation could be different from someone else's, and the meaning might change over time, particularly when you look at something like a Shakespearean text, for instance. What you're arguing basically that this is a current interpretation and it's based on your own facts, ideas, and understanding. Let's have a look at another example and go through a difference between something that's referring to the past and present at the same time. So if I was to discuss the fall of the Berlin Wall in context of a text. Now, the history of the event, as in when the wall fell, would be something that you would write about in past. However, if I was to indeed talk about the effects on society today, that would be in present tense. The reason for that is obviously the effects on society today are things that are ongoing and are true at the time of writing. Whereas the history of the event is something that has happened in the past, so you'll be referring to it in its correct tense as well. Now, to make those two distinctions quite clear, what you need to do is you need to make sure that you use the correct tense, and the reason for that, as I said, is to make sure that these things are separated from each other. So it's, as I said, it only seems like a very minor point, and it is, but it's one that you really need to make sure that you clarify.